All right. My name's Dave Curley again. I'm doing demonstrating on what I call weed pots from a log. And I kind of started out doing these with, went out, split some logs and just threw one of those split pieces on a lathe and turned a little vase. And as I did a few of those, I thought, well, why couldn't I do them all so that when I'm done with all four of them, or however many, you could make three, however you want to split a log, that when I put them back together, they go back together reasonably and kind of look like they came from the same thing. So I've been developing that process. I'm still developing that process. The handout that I sent, that was sent out to the people in email, is a little bit out of date from what I'm going to show, but it's pretty good. I did this demonstration at Ron's retreat last year. Had one class in that. So let's see. This image here, I don't know if we can zoom up a little bit on that, or just to zoom up on this right here just a little bit. Yeah, just this one right here. Yeah. Okay, so
Dave, can you rotate it 180 degrees? It's upside down
sure,
on the
it looks
screen.
good on my camera. There we go. How's that?
Great.
Okay, so these are some of the ones that I've done in the past that are gone now. So this one here with the money tree flowers in it has the one on the, I guess it would be the left here, could be the right in your image. That's a piece of ash. When I split it, it had some gnarly stuff going on, and that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. So the top view, this one is elm, and that's the same as this one here. And you can I call them weed pots. Somebody asked me about this just a minute ago. It's not any reference to cannabis, not weeds or pot, right? So
redundant.
But you can put dried flowers. I don't. I just bored holes in these for dried flowers. You can make your own flowers. As I've shown here, that type of thing. If you have, if you've done bud vases with the test tubes, you could do the same thing with this. Maybe you want to, maybe you do a set of these and a couple of them are candles or something like that. So there's a number of things you can do. Just kind of use your imagination. All right, so what I want to do is talk about, and then once again, Doug, our target's like 10:45.
Hey, you're the president.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Don't ask me.
So I'm going to put a couple of logs up here. Quarter after. Okay. If I shoot for 1:45, I'll probably make it. I'm going to put a couple logs up here. This is kind of like, you go out to the log pile and you sort of take a look at something and see what might work. I don't know how well these show up if they're too bright. If you can see the grain at all, well, you can. You can see it over here. So this is a piece of ash. This is a piece of mystery maple. I'm not exactly sure what kind of maple. I found this in our church wood pile, and somebody had written on 3 or 4 of these logs, Bamo or Blamo, I can't remember, but they wrote that on the log, and I'm like, I don't know what that's all about, but I'm taking them because they look nice. So just to let you know, I do replenish that wood pile quite a bit myself. So I don't know why, but there's certain satisfaction I get from that. This is a piece of elm, I believe, and I will talk about that one in a second. But so what I'm looking for, I've got, in a perfect world, I guess you'd have the pith right in the center, and that would split real nice. But this one's off center. This one actually has a couple of things going on, and you can already see that it already is telling me where I might want to split this. It's starting to crack already. And the other thing I'm looking for is if I look at a piece of log and I flip it over, what do I got going on over here? Well, it's a little different. It might you know, it, it might split a little funny going through there. You never know also what kind of branches were developing inside here that never came out. So that's one thing. This one here, if I was to lay this out, the center of the pith is here, the center of the log is over here. My thinking is I want to split through those two centers to get my best split out of here. And flip it over here. You can see this, you know, this is already decided what it wants to do. I don't really want it to be that far off when I split it, so I would have to live with, you know, some cracks already forming in there. So I'm gonna put this one aside. No, but you could, I mean, but it kind of gets away from what I'm doing, you know, I'm looking for this gnarly stuff, you know. So I got a piece over here that I'll show in a second, but this one is the same, or rather, this is the same wood as this is. This one right here, I don't know if we're going to see this very well, but if we look at it this way, get a top view, top down. Okay. So I'm getting a lot of stuff going on like that. And my guess is if I try to split that, it's going to want to follow that. Just thinking about it, you know, I'll probably still try to split it someday. But it's also got some stuff that sort of scares me a little bit right there. Oh. So I don't know, I might split that someday, but I think it would be very interesting. It would be gnarly like I'm looking for, but it might be a little hard to center it up. This one is a piece of walnut that I split. And I didn't wrap these in cellophane to, you know, keep them wet. I just to keep them together is all I did. And this is kind of where I was going. I'm going to put this one back together. And maybe off here. I think I did get it right. So it didn't get a whole lot of, when I split this walnut, it's almost, you know, I mean, I don't have to get too much farther on a planer to get a flat surface on there. That doesn't really do anything for me. You know, I did get a little bit here, but, you know, it's even going to be hard to actually, you know, when I try to put it back together to get it to register. So it's a nice piece of wood. I think the bark will stay on, but I'm not sure about, you know, actually doing that one. So I use typically I use a wedge and a sledge, you know, so like a 3-pound sledge, hand sledge. I'll put the wedge on there and just do that. I'll get to that in a second. Okay, so. This is a plastic test tube that I got from McMaster Carr for doing bud vases. These you got to be, I guess you do with glass too, but you have to be careful that you give this a little room, especially with green wood when you put it in, because otherwise when it contracts, it's just going to break it all apart. But I've used those before. All right, so when I want to lay this out to split it up, this right here is just something I made on a printer. Of course, I'm a 3D printer guy. To help me find the center, you can get those center finders, do all that, and you can have a ruler over here or a straight edge or whatever. This just kind of does all that for me at one point in time, or at the same time. So I'll I'll use a hole and just kind of find center here. So I'm using this hole, I'm a little off, I can bring it back. And it doesn't have to be total exact, you know, just sort of looking for that center. So next thing I want to do is, from here to here, this bark stayed on pretty well. I can use some of this dimension to determine where I want to put a reference circle on here. So, so, somewhere in there, I'll find a mark. I want to, if I've got the center here, I almost want to ignore the first ½ inch, because that's probably going to go away anyway. So if I come between here and here, find a center, I'm going to come around, just draw a center. And I'm going to put a little mark there, so when I flip it over, I know which one I'm going to. So the next thing I want to do is, again, I said, in this case, I'm going through the center. It goes through the center pretty well. Here, so I'm just gonna kind of put a dotted line on here to reference that I'm going to cut that there, or attempt to cut it there. So we come back in here. This, by the way, is an awl that I made from a throwing dart and a piece of Palo Verde from Arizona that someone sent me. Interesting stuff. Interesting thing about this Palo Verde, when you turn it, it smells like buttered popcorn. It's kind of fun. So at least the piece that I was sent. So I've got that. This is a cut line, and I'll probably go 90 degrees to that. So I've got a couple of marks on here. I can find my center. I can just sort of reference that. I'll mark that later. That's kind of a cut line, so I'm not just going to throw that on there. But I also want to put in a reference line, or a reference XY axis, and I'm going to just rough eyeball this. This is going to be for when I set them up on the lathe to turn them individually. It's going to be a reference line. I don't necessarily have to stick by it once I've split this up. I might find something interesting that I want to move it, but it'll also help me to sort of judge, from one place to the next, one end to the next, how much I'm going to adjust it.
Dave, we did have a question online. Where did you get your circle making jig?
I made it. I'm 3D printer guy. I'm a engineer type guy. I said to myself, I need something like this. I added holes. These holes on the side are from a diameter standpoint. If this is the center, I go 2 inches, 4 inches, 6 inches, and even numbers. The center one is odd numbers, and then these divided in half still. If I were to use all these circles on this log, I'd end up with a bunch of circles that were 1/4 inch apart, on a radial axis. So if anybody's interested in, a file or one of these, let me know. I can arrange that. Okay, so I've pretty much established where my reference lines are on this side. I've kind of guessing that this is going to split best along these two pith lines through the center. I'm going to take the log. I'm going to back up one thing. When I cut my log, if I'm using a chainsaw, whatever, I want to try to get it as square to the diameter as possible, the ends. It kind of goes without saying, but I do say that. So I'm going to turn this 90 degrees, and I'm just going to mark by eyeball. It's all going to change once I split it apart. But once again, I know that I want to go through my pith here. No, actually, let's see, that's my reference line. So my pith line's kind of back here. I don't know because, I don't know when it was cut. I feel like it was cut during the winter months because the bark is staying on real well. But I don't know if it was this winter or last winter. It seems to be fairly, seasoned to me,
That's normally what happens when you steal it from your church.
Yeah, you don't know. You don't know. Exactly.
You had to do that in the dark, did you?
I did not. So my wife runs the Montessori preschool at the church, and she's actually the only person that uses the wood, the fireplace, so we make sure it's, that thing's full, so. Yeah. I did one time take a piece of wood there and made a Eucharist bowl and gave it back to the church, so. Yeah, I know. That's why I'm rationalizing, yeah. Okay, so once again, I want to kind of find the center. I'm seeing right now that the pith is doing some funny things, doing a little twist on its way up here, but once again, I'm just going to eyeball this around, and I'm just picking a hole and I'm watching it go around. And I'm just going to pop that right in there. All right, so I marked my circle. This is the same diameter circle. What I'm trying to do when I split these apart is keep the center axis of the main log parallel to the axes that I generate when I do the 4 split single pieces. So this is still my reference line and not my cut line. I can see I've got some cracks here, what's going on. This surface was cut probably 2 or 3 days ago, and it had no cracks in it then, so you can see what's developed since then. So I'm using. I want to establish a center line that's parallel to this one here. So I need to know kind of where it's going to be, when I do that. Now, put it between center. So when I split these apart, I want to establish this axis parallel to the log axis, or at least what I'm telling it to be the log axis. I've kind of arbitrarily picked my center points, but so let's see. So I'm going to use my center points and my line to kind of line this up. And I'm spending probably more time on this with you guys than it would take me to do it. But from what I've progressed, like the evolution of the bowls over this is an evolutionary thing too, and it's just doing this up front helps me to get them to the point where they fit together better.
Dave,
Yes.
in doing this and establishing these guides on both things,
Yep.
where you know where the parallel axis is, you could actually do a twisted axis degrees off
You're
that.
getting a little ahead of me.
Okay.
And matter of fact, I was going to mention that at the tail end. If you got that copy of Barbara Dill's book around, yeah, go for it. Throw that in there because you can do that. So that's one of the things I was going to do in the future was actually think of a part that I'm going to split it apart. I'll do a multi-axis on all 4 of those, put them back together, and actually attach them back together and see what I end up with. So versus having them, kind of loose like these are. So yeah, you're stepping ahead. Okay, so I've done that. I'm kind of looking at this going, yeah, these cracks are going to kind of do this, from the center here. And I, just by knowing what I did on the other side, I do have this crack here. So, who was it? Someone asked me, just before I started, does it have to be 4? No, it doesn't have to be 4. Maybe, you've got a piece of wood that's naturally started to crack and, from the center maybe, and it's cracking here, maybe it's cracking in 3 places. You can make just 3, or if you've got a really large log, you could divide it up in 6, and kind of do it that way. However, it's very, what do they say? This is very fluid. Yeah, that's kind of the word I was looking for, but just, something that you can adapt to as you're going along. One piece of wood's going to tell you one thing, and another piece is going to tell you another thing. So that's how I laid that out. The other thing about this tool is if I come in here and just kind of say, how much tenon am I going to have? For me, I generally am using a 50 millimeter tenon. Well, that's a 2-inch diameter, close to 50 millimeters. So when I'm turning this down, like I said, I'm going to get, I don't know what's going to happen on this corner. I'm probably a little farther out than I need to be, but I've got enough material that when I make a tenon, I can have stuff to cut down to. This could also tell me, oh, maybe I want to bring that in a little bit, on my reference diameter. So maybe I'm going to kind of be in here instead. Now, once I do this to this side, if that's what I want to do, I'm going to flip that over and put that reference line over there too. So just kind of eyeball where a new tenon would be. That balances out a little bit more. I'm going to have more area cut away from here if I go that route. Okay, so that's laying that out. I'm not going to split this, but if I was, like I said, I normally use a sledgehammer and a wedge, and I couldn't find my sledgehammer, so I brought this persuader instead. So, and I couldn't find my normal wedge. This is a, an axe head, a hatchet head that came off the handle. It actually works pretty nice because it's sharp enough to where I could set that in there and then two-handed whack it, split it apart. No, I did that on the correct line I was going to. This works pretty well if you got one of those around. My wife was, when we met, she was a avid bowler on a bunch of leagues. One of our first dates, we went to bowling, at the place where she bowls. And no. No. Yeah. Nope, this is not a theft story here. This is my wife, and her bowling, So she's pretty good. On our date, we're bowling, and I'm looking down the alley, and I'm seeing 300, down there with her name on it. If you've been bowling, you know what I'm talking about, right? And I'm looking on some of the leagues. I see a series of like a 900 series, I'm like, and then she bowls. She gets up to bowl, and she's just, I can tell she's just throwing it. Like she's gonna make me upset if she beats me, Anyway, that's on recorded too, I guess. So, all right. Yeah. So this is a piece of. Actually, one of my favorite woods to turn is sassafras, but it doesn't split very easily, I found. But here's some interesting things that I found when I split this. I've got a knot that's split right in half. I've got something going on here, which is kind of a jigsaw puzzle. This is the kind of stuff I'm looking for when I do it. Just the interesting things that that would happen there. So. This was it's a little bit different version of what I was going to start with. what I'll do, I think I'll just go with this one. This is some more of that maple. And this one, you know, it's short, so I really don't have room to make a neck or, you know, or a, you know, opening like the ones I've done here. So I just rounded it off, put a hole in it. And maybe, you know, this is wide enough. You know, you could also do, you know, hollow forms here if you wanted to, and then put finials on these. So when you put it all back together, maybe your finials establish different heights, things like that. Just another thing, you know, direction to go. Now let's see what I got.
This is an evolution.
It is, yeah, and it's still evolving. No, I did not. This came from Uline, you know, I bought this myself years ago. If you buy a pack of 4, it'll last you a lifetime, unless you got some kind of a business or something. All right, so let's see where we are on time. Okay, so had I gotten here early, I might have been able to have the time to set up, right, Doug?
I thought they'll put the Chuck in there, but I thought maybe you were gonna start being sensitive.
Well, actually, I am. Okay. I got a cone on here already, so. Wow, I didn't tighten that. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's see, where did I put that thing? I am gonna do this reference. This is another reference cut that I make when I do these. So I'm thinking about what's the top and what's going to be the, you know, the top and bottom of each one of these when I cut them. I think this end is going to vary most when I split this. So I'll split it from this side and let what happens happen down here. So that means this is going to be my bottom. So I'll line this up here. Thanks, Doug. All right, I'm hoping this is all the way down, if I'm reading that right. So what I'm gonna do, you can see how much I'm varying here, probably 1/2 inch. So I don't want to trust the bottom of this surface. I want to put a reference mark in here that when I split things apart, I'll still have on all 4 pieces. All right. Yes.
Dave, what diameter is that piece of wood approximately?
I want to say 7 to 8 inches. Now you want to think, yeah, 7.5, so it's pretty close. You want to use a piece that's big enough that you can get a reasonable tenon on each piece. Sometimes I'll end up with, oh, this is actually one that has a full tenon. Sometimes I'll end up with, either bark in the tenon or just not anything in there. I kind of make my judgment on that, kind of orient that in the chuck so I'm still getting most of the contact. So if you're going down to a 5-inch diameter, 4-inch diameter, a 2-inch tenon or a 50 millimeter tenon's not going to leave you much to play with for rounding. So where are we? Okay, so I'm just going to put my reference line in, and I'm just going to come off maybe a 1/2 inch, depending on what I've got here, but maybe a 1/2 inch. If it is pretty true, I'll just let that be my reference surface. If I put this on here and it's, just happens to be, dead nuts, then I'll just use that. Go a little faster. Okay, so I've gone deep enough to where, I'm going to retain some kind of reference when I split that apart. We're not splitting that one, but I did want to show you that, so. Do I mark in the cut? Well, when I get done and I reestablish, it's kind of, remember, it's all about keeping the same parallel axis from the center out to where I'm doing. So I will use this. Let me grab a piece that I can show you with. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to first establish a tenon. This is a little bit of, these are reference lines. They're not set in stone, golden, absolute. So here's where I'm kind of make up for the odd splits and whatever else is going on. So I'm going to start out by lining it up on my reference lines. And what I'm looking for here is this to be parallel, perpendicular to my axis. So if I kind of register my finger here and I come around, it's pretty good. I don't know if you can see that with my overhead camera. So, I'm pretty confident that this center line is parallel to the center line of the whole log. I got lucky. Sometimes you got to make adjustments, and if your log twists as it splits, you put it over here, you make an adjustment, one way or the other. But I'm kind of looking to this, for this to be pretty true to the center line, perpendicular, if you will. So.
What you're doing is actually creating a line that will allow all 4 pieces or 3 pieces to stand perpendicular vertically in the same line.
Yes, all four pieces to be vertically aligned and also, this way. That's the theory, Does it work? Sometimes it gets a little funny, but, okay, that's life, that's right. Okay, so I'll actually do some turning. What time we got here? Half an hour. So what I'm doing is I'm going to turn a tenon. Make sure everything's tight. Just gonna whittle this down. I'm going to reestablish my reference point, reference line, deeper into this. Pretty good. Of course, now's the time I'm thinking that someone's phone's gonna ring. That these are calipers for my jaws, and I don't know if this is gonna fit or not. Okay, where are the? I did, but it doesn't have the right adapter, so that would have taken more time. I would have had to get here on time. Looks like we're good. What's that? Oh, well, they renamed all the streets, so I didn't know where to get off. I think, did they just rename Franklin? Just change the signs? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay, so there's that. Let's see, I'm gonna. So what I'd like to do is just kind of make them different heights, just for, just for the aesthetic of it. But I'll take the first one, I can kind of judge from there. Come back, I want to find kind of, this one lines up with this. And I'm going to be using these pieces to come back and say, how good am I here? So one of the things I want to maintain these reference lines, throughout, and I'm using that. That can come away, it probably would later on anyway. Once I get the first one established, and then I start on the second one, I'm using this one as my reference, reference piece as well. I just keep going around, till they get all done. All right, so here I'm just going to go ahead and start to shape this. What I'm interested in is somewhere along the line, not turning any of, some of the bark away. I don't want to round all this. I've done it in my instructions, those look rounded. So here I've got this happening. One of these I rounded. Let's see, this one right here I rounded. I didn't want to do that. I wanted this to come in here and sort of match just like these do. So I need to establish kind of here, what do I want to do? So I'm just going to arbitrarily throw about an inch and a half range where I don't want to touch that bark. So I can use it, a number of things to pare this down. I generally like to use my bowl gouge for most things. I could use it's a spindle turning. I could use a roughing gouge to get a lot of this material away, but I'll just use this. So when I'm home, I'm usually turning a little faster than what I was turning, but I'm also not kind of wired up with things, and it's my own lathe, that type of stuff. So right now it's kind of looking like a milk bottle, whatever. So I've got this reference line, I can go deeper. One of the things that I found that is if I'm looking for a nice fit together, I want to have these kind of on every piece, you know, this range, right? And then I can use this piece to do the next piece to kind of say, all right, where's that going to blend in? That kind of thing. Yes. I kind of tend to, you know. He asked, when I make them, do I usually turn my tallest one first? And yes, I do kind of tend to do that. I think it's just because, you know, I'm just getting into it, you know, it's the least amount of material I got to remove. It just tends to kind of work that way. All right, I'll continue to work on this a little bit. I want to be aware of time. I'm looking at the shadow here, you know, because it's ghost, right? So I want to get that high point. I'm going to do the ABC rule as much as possible. Yes.
You're talking about having two reference lines in the piece, so you had a bark blend in the same spot. Could you mark that the same way you did the bottom, or would that not work?
Well, it would cut into the bark, right? This is show surface right here. I want that to be, I don't want any, you know, marks in there, right? So the pencil I've used, you just use an eraser to get that off, right? So I'm going to leave this where I'm at. And if I were to transfer this one over to here, it's pretty close. You know, I don't want to get too fussy about what I'm doing in the demo because I'm short on time. So I'll do the back part later. You know, nice piece of wood. Got some ambrosia stuff going on in here. Got some stuff going on. This stuff, you know, that you get, you want to remove that stuff. You know, you don't want a potential person picking this up and getting a splinter. You know, so I'll use a brush, a wire brush. I've also, if I can find it, a scrub brush like this to get anything out of the bark. I mean, this bark too, the bark in this piece of wood is just, to me, really interesting. I got lichen showing up in here, and just the way, you know, it is. And so I was kind of fortunate to find these pieces. So what I'll do now is I'll just put a hole in the end.
If the bark appears to want to come off, you see it do it, or?
I don't. You kind of know, you're going to kind of know that to begin with, whether your bark's going to come off. So if I have a piece that I know the bark's coming off, it's coming off. I'm just taking it off. The ash that I showed. So this is another feature, right? This is ash. It's got emerald ash borer castings still in it. That's going to be there when I'm done, you know. It's just like if this was bark, I'm going to have those worm marks in the piece. You know, scrub brush that stuff out of there. And You know, but that'll be a feature in the pieces when I'm done with that one. Okay, so if I brought my Jacob's chuck and a
What size hole are you drilling?
this is I think this is a 1/2 inch if I'm not mistaken. You know, it's all going to depend on what you want to do. If you want to put tapered candles in it, maybe you find a, you know, a tapered something. I've used a spade bit and made a tapered, you know, spade bit by just grounding both ends off. You want to put, you know, you could make these a lot bigger and do tea lights or something like that. I know Tom Sampson's used those glass oil lamps, those tiny ones. That would be kind of cool, you know, to have those as well. Around a 500-ish there. I didn't know what this wood was, and the first time I turned a hole in it, I was like, well, it's definitely maple because it smells like pancakes, you know. Lost my grip there. All right. Get that out of the way.
That's a feature.
Yes.
You have 4 of those, you put one in each.
Well, it is the demo, right?
Yeah, this is what's gonna happen in your garage too.
First time it's ever happened to me. All right, it's coming out.
You and Charlie Fuentes can compare stories.
All right. There we go. All right, you know, if I was doing it, I'd clean it out. I come in here, you know, you can use wind up some sandpaper on a dowel or something to clean that a little better. Let's see. So, you know, I'm not going to talk about sanding too much. I've got obvious tool marks in here for the demo. I don't have time to clean that. Just putting a little pressure on there. It's one of his, if you buy one of his tools, you get this for nothing. Yeah. Okay, so I'll turn the back end. Getting close to my reference line. I'm going to establish that a little bit. So what I'm looking for here is I kind of want to I want to have a flats, a definite cut all the way through this circle. Right here, I still have a flat spot. And if I were to part that right now and set it, it'd have a little spot where it could wobble. It's got, quite a bit of surface area that it's probably still going to stand straight up and down. Kind of back to my reference here, like I said, if I follow that around and getting close to this end, I'll leave that in. Got a lot of tool marks. I'll just try to make a cleaner cut here. It's difficult for me to see the horizon unless I bend way down, but that's what I'm looking for. Okay, see obvious tool marks there, but I did get myself down to there. If you see what I'm talking about, I've got a complete circle that it's going to sit on. Let's show which one I got here. I know it's this. Must be the one. This one here. Here we go. Oh, that's why. You're right. Chuck's getting in the way from where that's set. This also was a step in the bark. It had kind of so it's fitting, but it's this end of the bark is a little higher than that. So using that as a reference again. I'm just going to part this off. You would normal, try to get your best cuts, go through your grits. That's
Dave, before you part that off.
Sure.
If you were to move that, the parallel axis, so you have more of the bulk on the bark side of the axis, would that align your bark so it looks like it goes in a circle all the way around?
It could, maybe. I don't know if you could get there. That's not something I'd be interested in.
Okay.
I'm looking for, what it's doing as I make these cuts,
Okay.
If I were, on this one here, I took a more straight in approach.
Okay.
Those tend to line up, at the top, but they're still going to fade away and do whatever they're going to do, as the outer roundness of the rest of the piece is there, so I've never really thought about it that way. I don't necessarily, if I go straight in, like you said, if I were to use this as a reference line, and then from there, I'm making a cut all the way through, I'd have to get back to past where the bark is to do that. I'd have a band of bark all the way around. If that's something you want, you could do that, yeah. But I wasn't really looking in that direction. Okay, so I'll part this off. I got a pretty established flat for it to sit on, so I'm just going to go in. That's as far as I'm going to go. If I was home, I'd try to whittle that down just a little bit more. Then take it off with your preferred method of taking that off. I think I've got time to start the next one and just sort of show how I line those up. Any questions on line? That's where it's lining up. While this is still kind of loose, but still between centers, I can kind of get my reference here. I think I'm still pretty good. I've got a little round out here that I'm thinking is where I look like I'm going to be off a little bit, but I think the surface is still good, so tighten that up.
The reference line is basically the bottom of all the vessels, right?
Yes. So got a ways to go there. Okay, you can kind of see what I was talking about before was I don't really have a full 10 in here, but I'm going to see where I'm at and see how that works. Yep. I'm not having a full tenant. I want to kind of verify that I'm still kind of here with that, and it looks good. I'm still perpendicular with that reference line. Okay, so here again, I might start to, shorten the heights of these as I'm going along with these. So I can kind of gauge here. I can put a little reference line here to where I want to cut. I mean, I can also, I basically lined this back up. I can kind of just throw a line in here to say, I want that to sort of, do the same thing as this one's doing. A little shorter. I could go a little shorter, but I kind of like that, so. But as I'm going around, and I do this, when I get to the point where I'm going to cut this tenon off, I want to use this to reference that I'm getting the same surface on all four of these as I'm coming around, so that when they sit on the table, they can also lock together, or get as close as possible anyway. I did use the reference line, but as you can see, once you start to get this to the point where now I've cut this off, the reference line's gone from here. This is it now. It could be a little lower, than it was before. So you want to just make sure that the piece before that you're close. One of these is a 16th inch off, on that set that I made there, and I left it that way. For this demo, just you can kind of come up and say, yeah, they don't quite line up, so that's it, kind of in a nutshell. I would continue to go through this. I still got 10 minutes. If there are any, I think at this point I could.
Question,
Yes.
Wouldn't you shorten it up from the top down, otherwise your splits are not gonna match? You gotta keep the bottom parallel perpendicular.
That's what I was saying, yep. So that's why I'm always going to use my original piece. I want to line that up so that it's locked in place. And when I'm turning this piece, I want to make sure that these surfaces align so that they sit on the table and are going back together, from the split log. So yes. Yep.
Hey, Dave, that jam you had, that rubber jam, we couldn't hear the question of where you got it from.
the rubber chucky.
Well, I
Rubber
got-
Chucky's at it?
Yeah, it's a rubber Chucky part that, I don't know that he sells them, but he'll give them to you when you buy stuff, because they're I think they're kind of a byproduct from what he does. Yeah. So, it was at,
Threads onto
Yeah, it sort of pops on, yeah. Oh, sorry. So it's not really threaded, but it will fit on, it's intended to fit on this, you know, any 10, what is it, no, 3/4, 10 thread. And it just puts pressure without putting any metal, you know, metal against there, so. Yeah, you know, I would continue to process all 4 of these the same way. You know, once again, I would, you know, do the sanding, you know, all that stuff that we all do. Don't really need to see it at a demo. Yes, George?
If you cut that bottom part now, before you drill your hole in it,
Good point. You have to drill the hole before you do that.
you don't have to use that rubber chunky piece.
So you want me to cut this off?
If you cut that, no, if you cut your bottom part, cut the sheet.
Yeah, but you know, I start to get, I've done this before where, this is a good point. I forgot to cut the hole in here. So if I'm messing around down here, I could get to the point where I've got nothing but, you know, just that little nib that I had, and then, oh darn, I forgot to drill the hole.
That's not what I was talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
If you just cut the shape,
Yep, yep.
you wouldn't have to use that rubber chunky at all.
I'd like to use it when I part it off. I mean, I could part it off with nothing, you know.
If somebody didn't have one.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying you need one of those, no. Because what I would do, what I've done in the past is just put the cone inside, you know, but that's gonna burnish the inside of that, so, yes. Right, yeah. Yeah, there's more than one way to skin a cat, as they say.
Also, if you use a brad point drill instead of their Forstner bit, you'll have a lot less trouble with that winding up there.
Yeah, yeah. I normally, I would run that in and out, you know, but it was cut and clean enough where it was just coming in like butter, so I went all the way in and, yeah. You had a question?
If it's wet and it starts drying out, there's a chance
If it's, I'm sorry,
Dave, could you repeat the question?
just a second, I will repeat the question. I want to get the whole question, so.
Okay.
you're gonna, when you're gonna finish it off, is there anything, what do you use to put on there? So if your piece is on the wet side, you know, 6 months later on the drying side, can the bark separate?
It can separate. I don't think it's going to on this maple stuff. I'm not saying it won't, but it's looking to me like this was cut in the winter, you know, and then you generally have more success with that bark staying on. So the question was, what do I use as a finish to help with, you know, the normal drying of this? This is seasoned wood. It's not kiln dried wood, you know. So what I use is a 50-50 mix, a sander sealer of denatured alcohol and shellac as the sander sealer portion of that. And once that's done and dry, I'll sand it back a little, and then I just use the Mahoney's wax. I've got Mahoney's wax that's it's a beeswax, canuba wax, and walnut oil, and it's really nice. I really like it, you know. So it might, you know, in 6 months, it might need another coat of wax or something, you know. Maybe it's, you know, if there's moisture in it, it might, I don't know, but they seem to be, you know, doing fine. I've also used a lacquer, a spray lacquer to, you know, on this ash it's not bone dry, but it's dry, you know. It's been standing dead, you know, for 2 years before I got to it, you know, so. Yeah, you know, I generally use something. I'm not going to use something that is going to crack if it shrinks and things like that, you know. So I think that's about
Dave,
it.
we had several people online that are interested in that circle marking jig that you had.
Okay.
What's the best way? Should they just send you an email if they want to
Send me
get
an
the?
email. So there's a couple ways to do it. If you have had, you know, someone here asking me about a 3D, you know, STL file that they could print themselves, I can do that. I also can print them out for people. It'll be a small charge, but I have
Okay.
a few here today too, if anybody's. 100, you know, I got to pay for that 3D printer, right?
All right, Dave, I'll put your email in the comments for the chat, so if people want to get it from there, they can find
Okay.
how to get you.
Any other questions online?
Hey, Dave, one last thing. How do you feel about your variation in heights? What works the best? Inch, 3/4? Repeat the question.
The question was, how do I feel about the variation of heights? You know, there's a number of, you know, things you can think about. Most of mine have been trial and error, you know. The two that I have here, if we can get a shot on those, thanks. You know, these I started with the tallest and did two in medium sizes, and then the front was smallest. On these, you know, I was gonna do the same, but I forgot. And then they ended up like this, you know, so that's okay too. Yeah, you know, so. Yeah, you know, and it also depends on what you're gonna start out with. What I was gonna say before is these are scalable. That's the word I was looking for. So if you start out with a, you know, taller piece, I mean, if you got a big enough lathe, big enough log, you can make floor models of these, you know. Put, you know, ornamental grass sticking out of them. They could be a centerpiece in your living room, you know. Another thing about stuff that you know, before we get done, if I got any time left, 5 minutes, you know,
You're the president.
all right.
You have as much time as you
Does that mean I have to clean up? Okay. Well, I can't find it all here. Here we go. So what, you know, type of stuff I use, you could go to, you know, get dry flowers from, you know, any craft store or whatever. I just get stuff from just, you know, the ground, right? This Mother Nature.
Yeah, the church swamp.
All right, I guess I better be careful what I say from now on. So garage sales is where I pick up a bunch of junk like this, you know. You know, you can get them at, you know, a craft store for, you know, but I can get them at a garage sale for pennies on a dollar, you know. So anyway, another thing is, like I said, you could explore candles, you know, tapered candles. I wouldn't do tapered candles and dry flowers necessarily if they're going to actually light them. But you know, you can kind of explore that type of thing. Yep. Any other questions?
Oh, awesome demonstration.
Well, thank you.